Hi, my name is Nirbhay Saxena, and once again I am here with my new thought sharing video. The topic is job setup. I know you people are aware about this job setup, but I can assure you that if you see this video up to the last, so you will find some new thoughts about the job setup, which can help an organization to avoid the customer complaint or to avoid the rejections. So first, we will understand the IATF 16949 requirement related to the job setup. So job setup requirement is the organization shall verify job setup when performed, such as initial run of a job, material changeover, or job change that requires a new setup. And the second is maintain documented information for the job setup personnel. The third requirement is use statistical method of verification where applicable. The next point is perform first of last of part validation as applicable and where appropriate. First of last of should be retained for comparison with the last of parts. Where appropriate, last of part should be retained for the comparison with the first of parts in subsequent runs. And the next point is retain documented records of the process and the product approval following setup and first of last of validations. So this is the requirement given in IATF 16949. You people can refer IATF 16949 for this requirement. Now important is first we have to understand the process. What are the factors which is responsible for the variations? Because if the people who is doing the job setups, if they are not aware about the process behavior, then there are possibility for the failures. It can create some rejections. So that's why it is very important for a person who is going to do the job setup, he should aware about the process factors which is responsible for the variations. And what are those? Number one, human factors. So sometime skill matrix, which is very important. If people are not competent enough to handle the process, then there are possibility of the variations. The second thing is related to the inadequate capability or the deteriorations. So sometimes our process are not capable to achieve the desired results. So in that situation, there could be some problems. And the third thing is unplanned changes or unplanned changes with respect to the incoming material and the services. And the fourth is uncontrolled variation in the environment for the operation of the process. So sometimes it is also important that for the operation of the process, some environment is requirement. If environment is not suitable, so definitely variation will impact to the process. And the last is unexpected changes. Suppose in process, if there are a lot of changes, unexpected changes, we are changing the manpower, we are changing the material, we are changing the methods for the monitoring. So again, this could result to the failures. So we have to understand the common cause variations. I'm not talking about the special cause variation. I'm talking about just consider. If we consider only the common causes, so we have to understand the process variation. And the person who is responsible for job setup, if he is aware about this variation, so definitely this job setup will be a very useful exercise for the company. Normally in the industries, people are doing this first of part or job setup or last of parts. Normally the context of the people for this particular exercise related to the job setup is whether part is within the specification or not. So if you ask the question in job setup, what actually you are monitoring? So most of the time people are saying we are looking whether the part are within the specification or not. So that is true. So parts should be within the specification. So this is the requirement of the job setup. But there is one more practice or one further new concept related to the job setup. What is that? If we take the data for last 20 days or last 1 month, 30 days, and whatever the data, if you capture for one particular machine, the first part and the last part, and if you do the average for first of part and if you do the last of part average separately, then this can conclude something. So if a process owner understands this concept, so he can predict the future for the process. Like, for example, I have given some example, one example here it is. And if you see the 9 o'clock, the part dimension was 9.9. And up to the last, at 6 o'clock in the evening, the part dimension is 10.1. So if you compare from first of part, the first of was 9.9 and the last of part is, this is first of part and this is last of part. So if you compare the first part and the last part, then you will find in normal condition under consideration of the common causes, the process variation is 9.9 to 10.1. Means when we consider only the common causes, this process variation is 0.2 in 8 hours. Now if one process owner are just looking whether the part dimensions are within the specification or not, so 10.1 is also one of the within the specified limit, because the dimension is 10 plus minus 0.2. So 9.8 to 10.2 part is okay. And suppose one process owner has doing the setup at 10.1, so there are possibility by considering this effect. The possibility is up to the evening this part can go beyond the limits, which can create the customer complaint or the rejections. So that's why it is very important that we have to understand the process variation or the process behavior. The person who understands the process behavior, and if they do the job setup by considering the process behavior, so definitely this exercise will be useful to avoid the customer complaint and the rejections. This kind of processes, like in press shop, in forging shops, and in some other processes, like sometime in assembly processes torquing, whatever we torque at 9 o'clock, if you do the same exercise up to the evening, so you will find there could be some variation in the torque. And if a process owner is aware about this process variation, suppose the morning torque was 5 and evening torque was 6. So if they understand this variation, so they can set their process by considering this variation. And if they consider this variation, so definitely you can avoid the customer complaint and the rejections. So I hope this video will be useful for your company. I can tell you one thing about the other processes. Some of the processes may have very little variation in shift, but some of the processes may have the good variation. But if you take the data for the last 20 days, 30 days, 40 days, as much big data as much as possible, so definitely this exercise will helpful to the personnel who is responsible for the job setup. So I hope this video will be useful for your organization, and if you think this video is useful for your organization, you can share this video with your friends, with your colleagues, with your team members and other peoples. So thank you, and thank you very much.